Hello again, YouTubers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm your host, the Board Game Captain.
I'm Lynn.
I'm Alex.
And we're going to be doing another top 10 countdown today. Today we are counting down the top 10 things in games that piss us off. So for this list, we're going to be discussing things that either designers or publishers do when making board games or other kinds of tabletop games that just upset us to no end, that really tick us off, that in some cases maybe make us, want to just burn the game in a pit in the backyard while screaming at it.
Or not. Maybe it's just something you dislike about a game you really enjoy, but it's just the one little thing that gets you.
It's possible my list is a little more intense than yours.
Possible and likely.
What do you think on that subject? Is your list super intense? Are they things that drive you nuts?
Yeah, pretty much.
Burnable.
Yeah.
So did you make a bonfire with the thing?
Maybe with some of them.
Yes.
So now, I looked at a lot of games that I rated from very low to mediocre on Board Game Geek, and I analyzed why. And the whys that came up a lot were the things that really topped out my list. So what did you do, Lynn, to figure it out?
I just, I took probably a week and a half, and just as I remembered things, or as we played games, and there was something in there that annoyed me, I just wrote it down.
And then how'd you organize it?
I organized it probably in, how much it annoyed me.
So you just thought about it?
Yeah, the ones towards the, number 1 and number 2, I probably wouldn't even play a game with those.
Well,
whereas the higher ones, I would play it if it was a good game. I just might be slightly annoyed.
But it better be good.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about you, Alex? What did you do for your list?
I took good things of games that I enjoyed, that if they just changed this one thing, it would make it even better. Or then there's some just non-starters. If the game has this element in it, might as well not even.
And would those be your top?
Right. Those. So yeah, in order of number 10 would be the least egregious. Number 1 is I'm not even going to entertain the idea of opening this box.
That's fair. Lynn, why don't you deal us out our order? Let's see what order we're going to present in. Alex got a 4.
Looking bad.
I got the ace.
Oh, Captain scores.
All right, so it's going to go. The presentation order is going to go myself, then Lynn, then Alex. So a bit of. A little like that.
Much like that.
So let's get to our list. Number 10. So for the number 10 thing on my list in games that pisses me off, I put claiming to be a 2-player game when you're not really a 2-player game. Now, this just came up in a game that we were playing yesterday. That you weren't here for this one. We were having a game night yesterday with some other people that we're friends with, and we were playing a game. I don't think you've played this one, Dead Drop.
No, doesn't sound familiar.
So now the game claims to be 2 to 6 players, and 2 to 4 players. I think 2 to 4 players, and before now we'd only played it 2 players, and I hated it at 2 players. And then we tried it at 4, and it's okay, it's okay at 4 players. It's not bad. But I hate it when they do that. I absolutely hate it when the game says 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 or 2 to 6, and then you try it at 2 and you're like, yeah, it obviously should be 3 to whatever the cap number is, because it doesn't work at 2. And, that's just...
It's just to move the game off the shelf, right?
Yeah, it's it. They're trying to trick you into buying the game to make you think you can play it at 2 players, and in a lot of cases, in some cases, it's worse at 2 players, but in some cases, it's literally unplayable at 2 players, and it should not have 2 players on the box.
Right.
How about you?
My number 10 is playing piece colors that are difficult to tell apart from each other, or colors that blend into the board.
Oh, I know what game you're thinking
Well,
of.
it's referencing 2 games. The colors that are difficult to tell apart is the mystery game. There's a very light pink and a beige color, and
they're way too close.
If you're playing with 2 people with those colors, it's you're constantly grabbing the wrong color because they're so close.
Yeah.
And the colors that blend into the board, that's specifically the yellow pieces in Lords of Vegas. The board is so busy, and then the yellow is just a very light yellow.
And now you love Lords of Vegas.
Yeah.
We all love Lords of Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one thing that just drives you nuts about Lords of Vegas, I guess.
So it needs to be more of a contrasting difference, either between the pieces with each other or with the board and the pieces.
I have a friend. This isn't really a game design issue, but he's colorblind, so green and gray look the same to him. And he was playing Risk, and he thought he was doing excellent.
That can be a big problem with people who are colorblind. Right. So what do you got for number 10?
My number 10 is it's more of a design issue. The hard to read or upside down reference sheet, where you either have to walk around the table, you have to turn the entire thing, or you have to do like that sort of, I gotta read the rule for this card because it's on one big item and I can't. If everybody has their own individual reference cards, that's a good thing. Okay. When there's one big one that is oriented a specific way, and you either have to turn the whole board, or you have to, it's either written at the top of the player board, or it's on a bigger sheet or card.
I didn't think of this, but you're right, that is annoying.
It's really annoying. It's not a game killer, that's why it's my number 10, but it's annoying.
It is annoying.
It's something I...
All right, fair enough. Number 9. Now, my number 9 on my top 10 things in board games that piss me off is solo games that pretend to be co-op. And let me explain this. There's quite a few co-op games out there where it's really a solo game. There's multiple people playing it, but what always happens in these particular games is one person, usually the person with the most dominant personality, just winds up making the decisions for everybody, and everybody else just sits there. So let me give you, for instance, a good example of this is in my opinion, Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert, because there's always someone who just like organizes everybody. It's like, okay, you go there, or you go there, I'll go here.
Castle Panic has a tendency to do that.
Castle Panic is another one. Now, a game that is not like that is Mysterium. It's co-op, but because of the different roles and everything, it doesn't get like that. So that would be a game that resists that sort of urge. But the games where they're obviously a solo game and they try to make them co-op and they just wind up being a solo game with a bunch of other people sitting there and watching and moving pieces for the person who's playing solo, it drives me nuts.
It's susceptible to alpha gamers.
Yeah. And you know what the problem is I fall into that role a lot because no one else will talk. And I try to resist it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it this time. But I'll sit there and everybody will just stare at the board. And they'll be like, and I'll be like, oh, well, you could do that. And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then the next person's just like, I'm like, well, if you do this, and then I'm like, damn it, I'm doing it again. And I can't get away from it. It drives me nuts. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. What do you got for number 9?
I have superfluous game pieces.
Oh, I didn't know those upset you that much.
Yeah, it does. So, the GLaDOS token in Portal, you don't need to tap the stupid thing to recycle it. Just say, I'm recycling that one. I mean, it's unnecessary.
Okay.
It's a waste of money
That's
because
fair.
they don't need to.
I knew that bothered you. I knew that the extra pieces bothered you, but I didn't know it bothered you so much that it was going to wind up in your top 10 list. I had no idea it bothered you, though.
It bothers me.
I'm sorry to hear that. My number 9 is things in games that piss me off is crappy artwork. And
yes.
And this isn't like this is number 9, so it's not, like I said, a game killer, but the bar has been raised in gaming so much lately. When you have games like Mysterium, which goes at the top of my mind for
oh my god, the game is beautiful.
And if you're just doing stick figures or the really two-dimensional, boring faces or something, you're if it's going to be an interesting long-playing game, it's got to be better. The game has to be upped, literally.
I don't know why I didn't think to put this on my list, but you're right, and I probably should have put this on my list. I hate it when a game has real crap art,
especially when you're spending $60 for a game.
Sometimes more. Sometimes less. I mean, most games go probably from they run the gamut of around $20 to $100 for most games. Yeah. Right. Number 8. So my number 8 is very specific
and amusing,
and it amuses me. My number 8 is rip-offs of other games that are then worse than the game they ripped off. Okay, here's the thing. I understand that people can copy each other's mechanics, and they can copy each other's mechanisms and copy each other's styles, and that's fine.
There's only so many mechanics.
Yeah,
but, right.
and that's totally cool. I'm good with that. Sometimes they can copy them so close that they can be considered rip-offs. But if you're going to rip off somebody's game, for God's sakes, improve on it.
Do it better.
Yeah, do a better job.
Right.
I mean, if their game came first and your game is so close it's going to be compared to it, make something an improvement. There's so many times where you see a game and you're like, wow, this plays so much like that game from last year, except the game from last year's better. And that drives me up a wall. If you're gonna copy someone else's game, improve on it, for God's sakes.
Right.
My number 8 is non-standard card sizes.
Oh, I knew this was going to be on your
I was
list.
surprised that this was far down as number 8.
Yeah.
Either slightly bigger or smaller.
You really hate the little ones.
Yeah, the little ones are terrible.
Well, like, if you don't have to shuffle them, they're okay, right?
Yeah, it's me. If you have to shuffle them, it's where it annoys me.
Yeah, because they have those little cards, and they're little for the placement in Battle Lore. But you're okay with those because you don't have to shuffle them.
Right, yeah. It's just awkward to shuffle things that are not the standard card size. And, like, what is it, Dastardly Dirigibles?
Oh, yeah, huge cards.
They're not huge. They're just slightly longer than standard card size.
Yeah.
Just slightly. And even that little amount is enough to make me, like, completely spaz out while trying to shuffle.
Really?
Well, they're huge in the wrong way. That's what I mean. They're
too long.
They're long.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing.
They're almost like tarot cards.
Right. If you want to
Yeah.
shuffle them, you have to.
Yeah.
You
go
know,
the wrong way.
you complain about this one so much that I thought it was going to be your number 1. I'm actually surprised it's your number 8.
That's the only thing that's surprising about it, is that it's as far down as number 8. My number 8 are games that have too much going on at the same time. Like, I've heard the term fidgety referred to as where you have, and I understand the captain, some of his favorite games involve this.
I was going to say, I'm wondering where you're going with this. What games are you going to mention?
Where there is a tremendous amount happening on the board, and you have to move a lot every turn, and there's a lot going on. And these are typically the longer games. And if anyone's been paying attention to these videos, I'm not a fan of tremendously long games.
So, like, what can you give an example of one of these?
I have not played it myself, but I've seen it. And I think your Twilight Imperium was a fidgety game.
How dare you!
It ties into some of my other things on my list that build up to fidgety or too much going on.
I thought I knew you.
It's not a game killer, but it's up there.
Number 7. Now, my number 7 is something that's almost extinct in most modern games, but it does still show up now and again. And when it does, I want to go find the designer and grab them by the shirt and scream in their face and be like, "What were you thinking?" And that is player elimination in a long game.
Yes.
And when I say a long game, anything over an hour. If you're an hour or longer and you can eliminate players, especially because it sometimes player elimination can happen fast. Like, let's say you eliminate the player in the first half hour and it winds up being a 2-hour game and someone is sitting around twiddling their thumbs for an hour and a half. Yeah. That is awful. And one that really comes to mind, it's an older game, and this is actually old enough to be a classic. It's over 20 years old, but they did have a reprint of it a few years ago, is Titan. And when I was a kid, I loved Titan. And still to this day, I'll play Titan 2 players because you eliminate the other player and it's over.
You win. Right.
Yeah. But when you play Titan 3 players or 4 players, because Titan is one of those games that theoretically can go on forever. Like, you could play it and just never end. I had games of Titan when I was a kid that went on like 4, 5, 6 hours.
Right.
And if you eliminate someone really fast and then everybody else drags out for another 5 hours after you eliminate them, that's not right. And
I would condense that time frame to 30 minutes. If you're eliminated in the first 5 or 10 minutes of a 30-minute game, So you
think anything over 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's got an elimination factor, and it's the fatal flaw with Risk.
It's why some of the newer versions of Risk have a way to end it sooner without having you knocked out. And Risk is another one that's very much this is about the original Risk for sure.
Right.
Oh. My number 7 is player counts that are lying liars who lie.
Oh.
Specifically when a game completely changes to play 2 players.
Okay, so this is our first crossover.
Well, sort of, but yours is a little bit different because you
Okay.
said it doesn't work for 2 players.
Or works badly at 2 players.
Mine is when it's like you get a game, and then the 2-player variant is like not even the same game.
A total
And it's
alteration
like,
of the rules.
why did you even bother?
Well, like, let me ask.
What about Grimslingers?
What about Grimslingers?
No, it doesn't really change in 2 players. Versus
Well, you got the duel, and then you got the roll. Is that,
Yeah, but
that's
no,
what you're talking
Those
about?
are 2 separate games, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's literally Grimslingers is a game that literally contains 2 games.
Okay, right.
And you can play both of them at any.
Right. So that's not what you're talking about.
No, that's not what I'm talking
okay,
about.
Okay.
So, like, can you give an example on this?
Well, to a lesser extent, the one that comes to mind just right now is Mysterium, where they take out the bidding for lower player counts.
Yeah.
Where,
I actually don't like playing Mysterium with anything less than 4 players. I don't. I prefer it. I love Mysterium, but only when I have at least 4 people, and I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I got you. My number 7 is actually a mechanic that I don't enjoy very much, and it's auction or bidding within the game, where you have to where that's part of the game play is competing directly for resources or position in an auction.
There was a game I was going to suggest to play tonight that I now decided not to suggest to play tonight.
If that is the game, I probably wouldn't want to play it.
About 50% of the game.
Okay, it's auction or bidding. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of that.
I didn't know you were so anti-auctioning games.
And if it's within the game, I feel like it kind of takes over the game, because then that becomes...
And you don't, or like, can you give some examples of some auction or bidding games that you really don't like because of that?
Not off the top of my head.
I mean, this is a specific mechanic that you just really don't enjoy then.
Yeah, and like I said, it's it's not... It's,
Well, what about like,
lower on the list.
What
so
about
it's not
wagering
fatal.
mechanic? Or is it
See,
just...
wagering I highly enjoy.
All right, so you like Colossal
I like-
Arena with the wagering.
I like betting.
Okay, just
I
not
don't like
auctioning.
Right, where it goes back and forth. That's what the part I
What about a silent auction where you do a hidden bid and then you all just reveal it and you don't go back and forth on it?
Okay, that's different. Yeah, as long as it's
It's open bidding.
open, right, where that becomes the activity.
Okay, I could
That's
see
something
that.
that
Yeah.
annoys me.
It
Pisses me off.
that is fair. Number 6. Now, my number 6 is basically what it boils down to. Is when you're reading the rules and it becomes really, really obvious while reading the rules or playing the game that they didn't play test the game or they didn't play test it enough. There's giant loopholes in the rules that if they had play tested it should have been found.
Right.
There's parts of the rules that barely work or don't work at all, and you're like, did they even try this after they wrote the rules? Did they even bring it to the table and have people go
But
through
what
it?
if they're up front with it, like we didn't play test this at all?
Oh, the game we didn't play test this at all? Well, no, but that's a tongue-in-cheek game that parodies that. That's
Okay.
allowed.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about actual games, actual mid to heavyweight games that obviously were not play tested enough or at all and wind up with tons of loopholes in the rules that were obviously not intended. And that's what I'm talking about, and that drives me up.
Are contradictions in the rules?
Yeah, oh my God, blatant contradictions.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you house rule the hell out of the game so that you can actually play it.
Yeah, which I shouldn't have to do that.
No,
I should
nobody's
not have to do that.
Right.
Yeah, and that drives me nuts.
Oh, my number 6 is odd player count requirements.
Oh, I know what she's talking about.
I mean, it's nice to have a range, like, 2 to 4, 2 to 6, but when something is just like, you need these many players and you can't play this game with any other type of players,
Can I take a guess?
then, well, yeah, it's that Star Trek game that we've had.
The one you guys just talked
We've
about the
had
other day.
almost a year and we've never been able to flip and play
Because
it.
its player count is 3 players.
3 and
Yeah.
3 only.
Yeah, and only 3. And yeah, that's just, yeah, exactly. And yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Mm-hmm. My number 6 thing I hate is player elimination. I didn't even give it a time frame. I think 30 minutes is the outside window, but
it upsets you at any time then.
right. I mean, you're literally saying to a group of people in your home, "We're going to have fun," and one of you isn't.
It's true. It really is, and that's why so many modern board games will avoid that.
Right.
But every once in a while, you still see a new game come out with player elimination. You're like, why?
Well, I think it's because it was the mechanic for
A long time. Yeah, a long time.
It was the only way you could win a game.
You know, and to be fair, if those games with player elimination, if they're playable at 2 players, I sometimes will still like them at 2 players. It's just, you should have made it a 2-player game. You shouldn't have bothered with the 3 and 4 players. Because 2 players is the one size of game that I'm okay with it being super restrictive in number if it's just 2 players.
Well, right, because then you have, chess.
Exactly, and that's fine. Right. Yeah, that's fine. Number 5. Now, my number 5 is too much randomness. Now, let me explain. I feel like there's a happy medium between strategy and randomness. There should be some randomness, but when you're playing a game that has dice rolls and drawing random stuff from a bag and a shuffled up deck, and you don't get to choose your actions that are done randomly, and you have to do exactly at that point. It's like, no, I don't want to play this game anymore. I might as well just flip a coin, because let's just flip a coin right now. Oh, look, you won. Good. Let's move on to another game.
Right.
Because if it's that much randomness, that's what it feels like to me. You need to have at least 50% control over what you get to do in the game. If it's any less than 50% control, and I mean total control, not roll the dice and it's got to be 50% total control of what you do, maximum 50% randomness. Anything with more randomness than that and less control, it's like, no, I don't even want to bother. I don't want to play that game.
I think you can expand that even more and say, even if it's not, the randomness isn't part, if the whole game isn't random, if there's a component in the game that's random that just turns the game over, that's annoying.
Where literally the randomness could be like you win or lose on a...
Right, you could be losing the entire game, and then your opponent draws some card that says basically you lose.
Yes, I agree. That is also terrible, and completely unbalanced. So totally.
My number 5 is expansions that should have been in the base game, because
it's like pay to play on board games.
And it's pretty much referencing the same game as last time,
which we're still waiting for the expansions to come out on.
We're still waiting on an expansion, so we can play it.
Yeah, for Star Trek. Yeah, they should have included another faction in the base game. But there's other ones like that too, where you'll go to Gen Con when a lot of the games get released, and they'll have a game coming out, and they have an expansion being released alongside it.
Right.
And now, if it's something that totally changes the way the game plays, you understand why they separated it out. But other times, it's something where you're like, yeah, that should have just been in the base game. I would have. I mean,
in this expansion, you get the rule book for the game.
I don't think I've ever seen it that bad, but
my number 5 thing that annoys me, pisses me off, is it has a bit of a tie into the overly complicated, fidgety part, is the extremely long setup, where the rule book is many, many, many pages, and it takes an hour before you can even play.
Okay.
And
I find that annoying too.
Right.
I, on a lesser extent, agree with both of you.
Yeah.
And do find it annoying, but some of my favorite games do have long setups.
Like I said, some of these are found in excellent games, but it's just the part that annoys me.
It does have to be. It has to be an amazing game to overlook it.
Right.
Like Twilight Imperium, I love that game. I will overlook the amount of time it takes to set up. Again, and Battle War too. Battle War, love that game. Takes a long time to set up, but I will overlook it. But one thing I like about Battle War is they make part of the setup part of the game.
Right. That's what I was saying. As long as it's fun to do the setup, like BattleTech.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an incredible amount of setup, but it's fun to do it. Because you're designing your mech.
Like, because you spend time before you even meet up just figuring out what mechs to use.
Right, and I think that's pretty cool.
Okay.
But if you're just putting pieces in place and rolling to see where you're going to start, and it takes forever to get going, I could see that. I find that to be problematic.
Number 4. Okay, this next one. I mean, we're in the top 4 here. This is where they're getting extreme.
Fatal flaws.
Yeah. Well, this particular one makes me angry with the intensity of 1,000 white hot burning suns.
These are the ones that Captain burns.
Okay. This is another one with the rule book.
Okay.
When they make a rule book and they're describing to you how to do something a bit abstract, something maybe you don't immediately get, or they're describing to you how to set up the board and the board area, and there's like 5 decks and lots of things, and then they don't show you a picture of it or even a diagram. I mean, they could do a black and white diagram with like boxes and be like, the deck goes here, and they don't do that. When I see that, I want to go, what do you mean? How?
They like put the deck to the north.
Yeah.
The player
What?
board.
Where? What are you talking about?
Like
Put the counters to the southeast.
Trying to describe how to tie a knot without pictures.
It's and whenever they make a rule book with no diagram and no pictures, which still happens now and again, especially in a lot of the smaller companies or independently published games, it's like, you know what? I understand if you can't afford to have a color rule book, but for God's sakes, put a black and white photo in there. Put a stick figure diagram like in the old
line drawing.
Yeah, line drawing.
It's not that hard.
I mean, they do that, and they do that very well for the all the Flux games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks fine. It works fine, and that's all I'm asking for.
Well, my number 4 is long turns, especially when other players' turns don't affect you.
Oh, I'm with you on this.
Yeah, that may have made it into mine as well.
If on other players' turns they're doing things that might mess up your next turn or that affect you in any way, like I'm engaged then and I want to know what other players are doing. But if like other players are just like derping around a board and they never touch you, or if it's just like random damage, like if the only thing they can do to you is give you like a point of damage or 2 points of damage, then that's boring too, because...
And if it takes a long time for them to get through the turn.
Right.
Because then it's just, you don't even really need to pay attention, just like, oh, I do a point of damage. Okay, here's my life. Yeah. There you go.
The long scoring phases. When there's a scoring point of each turn, and it takes a long time to calculate it at the end of each turn.
Yeah.
All you have to do is sit there and watch your player.
That would be something that would prolong it.
Just
count.
Yeah.
That part, that's annoying. My number 4 thing that pisses me off is, now I'm into my fatal flaws area as well, so I will not be playing games that require this, is the pre-game deck construction or the collecting of a game before you even play.
Like collectible card games.
Magic the Gathering is the example. I don't want to be that involved in a board game or card game that's...
At this point in my gaming life, now I used to play Magic and I played the hell out of it and I had huge collections. But at this point in my life, I'm totally with you. Mm-hmm. I don't want to collect. I don't want to spend, because when you do that, you have to focus on that one game to the detriment of all other games.
Right.
And I like to have a variety of games to play.
And you become a curator of the pieces of a game.
Yeah.
Instead of playing the game.
Which is a huge money sink also.
Right. And your people come to the game with different pieces. And it's unfair.
You know what? I would have disagreed with you 20 years ago, but today I am totally with you on that.
Excellent.
Number 3. Now, these are the top 3. These are the in this case these are the completely, I mean, if this was a good list, you would say creme de la creme. But this is like the scum from the bottom of the Hudson River. This is what this is. This is just disgusting. And for me, my number 3 is poorly written rules.
The rules are very important.
Well, because he reads all the rules most likely.
Think about this for a minute.
Yeah.
Out of all the games we've ever played, how many of them was it that it was me who read the rules and then taught everybody else?
Nearly all of them.
Well, I think the game that I know you're going to complain about, I read the rules, but your brain melted just for me reading it.
Well, I'm not going to call anybody out. Well, okay. I read the rules again later of that game, and that is Van Helsing.
It was like someone... It was like it was written in a different language, and someone plugged it into Google Translate, and then no one proofread the translation.
And it was full of contradictions and ambiguities. See, here's the thing:
like self-assemble furniture.
Yeah. Now, okay, I've called out a few other things from the rule books already. The no play testing.
Right.
I've called out the no diagrams. But poorly written rules is way worse than either of those. Poorly written rules is like you wrote it down and whether or not you play tested, maybe you play tested, but you taught people yourself, didn't actually give them the rules to read. Mm-hmm. The poorly written rules says you never actually even handed the rules to someone else and then just sat back and saw can you figure out the game based on these rules? Because sometimes you write them and you know how to play, so you don't realize that you've written these rules that only you understand. And other people read them and they're like, what? 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 Yeah. It just, I can't stress enough. If you're writing game rules, hand them to people you don't know. Don't tell them anything and just watch if they can figure out your game. And if the answer is no, then they're poorly written. Go back to the drawing board and rewrite them. And throw in diagrams, throw in explanations, throw in examples. Because you know what? And that's another thing, is if your rules are a little difficult to understand, there should be both diagrams and examples.
Well, my number 3 has been mentioned already, player elimination.
Oh, wow, that's 3-way crossover.
So,
there we go.
I guess you guys pretty much covered it.
Well, here's a question. Do you have a minimum amount of time for a game that you would... Is there an amount of time that you would find player elimination acceptable in?
Like, probably 10 minutes or less.
Really? So it would have to be really short for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I had it in an hour, you had it in a half hour, you have it in 10 minutes.
All about
anything more than 10 minutes, and you're like not allowed to have player elimination.
Yeah.
All about the commitment and the reward.
And and again though, if those games are 2-player, a lot of times if they'd have just made them 2-player, if they didn't go above 2 players, it'd be okay.
My number 3 thing that pisses me off is pretty much your randomness. I called it luck, but you called it randomness, and I was exactly what you said. If you're just hoping to get something favorable, if what is it? Was it Dead of Winter? And if you roll a 1, you just die.
Oh, you get bit by the zombie.
Yeah, you're just like, well, I just hope I don't get one.
Oh, yeah, hope I don't get bit by the zombie. Yeah, that is a royal pain in the arse. I agree. That is something and I like Dead of Winter, but that's the part of Dead of Winter that drives me up a wall.
Right.
There's not enough to mitigate. Number 2. Now, my number 2 on the list of things that piss me off in games, and this one makes me just furious thinking about it. Like,
is it something to do with the rules?
No, it's not. It's something to do with something that masquerades as a game and is not actually a game.
Oh.
Non-games.
Does it rhyme with Herlock Sholmes?
It does indeed. But it's not the only one. Okay. There are things, they'll be on a game shelf and they're in a box and they look like a board game. But when you actually get them home and you open them up and you realize they're like a social activity, but they're not a game. There's really not a game there. So like in the case of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, it drives me up a wall because it's not a game, it's a social activity that they attach a test to at the end just to be able to score you points. And it's like, that's not a game. Or another one that's like that is Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
It's a social activity with a totally arbitrary scoring mechanism just to try to make it a game, but it's not a game.
Right.
There's no game there.
Right.
So anything like that, where it's pretending to be a game, but it's not a game, it makes me want to burn the world down.
Wow.
Well, my number 2 is when you need more than one copy of the base game to play. That excludes collectible card games, because
So would this be like living card games where you
Yes.
want to have multiple copies so everybody can have a deck of every faction?
If
Okay.
buying a box that is a complete game, it should have enough in there for the player count, in my
Right.
opinion.
Oh, no, I get this.
That's why I excluded CCGs, because obviously everyone needs to
But a
stuff.
lot of the living card games, they're kind of like the inheritor of the CCGs
Yes.
for people who don't want to do CCGs anymore. And while one box does have enough to play, it doesn't have enough to play if you want to play the same faction. A lot of times, like if you and your opponent both want to play the same faction, like, but there's only one deck of that faction, then you got to get a second box. We did that with was it Doomtown? Yeah,
I do not want.
You're fed up with that?
Burn
You're
it to the ground.
You're fed up with that?
Yes.
Burn it to the ground.
It seems to me like a cheap way to get extra money from customers.
I get you.
It's the pay to play.
Well, and that's interesting because FaZe, which we both liked a lot, they included 2 decks of each deck of the factions. So you could play the same factions against each other and not need 2 sets. So that's a big kudos to AEG and how they did that with FaZe, because it didn't fall victim to that, even though it could have. Could have fallen victim to that.
Because, I mean, most of those living card games, yes, I guess you could do like more than 2 players, but most of the time you're just going to be playing 2 players. Just put in the flipping different deck in the box. Like,
and charge $2 more and everybody will be happy. Number 2 for me is too many ways to win. Now,
What?
I understand this.
I love when there's lots of ways to win. What are you talking about?
And I realized this after playing Ethnos.
Oh.
That this is the thing I didn't like about the game. It took me a little bit to put my finger on exactly what was bothering me about that game. And there can be multiple ways to win, like 2. But when you get to more,
that's one of the things I love about Ethnos.
I think that's the thing that I didn't like about it.
I agree with you.
Is that
I hate you both right now.
You can have a strategy that can work, and if you can have multiple strategies, but when you have 4 different ways to win the game, I think you're playing 4 different games, and I
don't love that. The more the merrier, I say, with those mid to heavyweight games.
Well,
I like lots of ways to win.
Why doesn't just everyone win the game then? All right, with your multiple different ways to win. Everyone's a winner.
Yeah, I think that's the fatal flaw for Ethnos.
And the phone is ringing. I think
it's the developers from Ethnos.
Finally, number 1. Now, my number 1. It builds up in me.
Do you have to take a moment?
I do.
Do you want us all to leave the room for a moment? You and the view?
No, stay here. So I need someone here to hit. No, my number 1. It infuriates me so much. It's this. Okay. It's this thing. It's like a shard of glass in my heart. After playing it, it makes me want to watch the end of the universe.
Wow, we went from the burning the world down to ending the universe.
That's right. I want to let the galaxy burn.
Exponential.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
My number 1. It's real-time games that don't either have an automatic way to let you know when the time is up, or have someone designated to watch the sand timer, and possibly have cards with lots of text in them to read while the sand timer is going. This is not all real-time games, because there are plenty of real-time games that do it right. A real-time game that has a mechanical method of
categories.
Categories with its timer, or Pingo Pingo with the CD.
And I mean, honestly, there's no reason why modern games shouldn't have a mechanical way.
Right.
Scattergories could do it back in the flipping 80s with the little
they had the little timer.
Little, like egg timer.
It's an egg timer. Yeah, it's an egg timer.
I mean, why are people even using
but if you're
hourglasses anymore? Because they're cheap.
If you're going to do the hourglass, there should be literally someone whose job it is to watch the hourglass. Because, like, for instance, and a good example of a company that did that right is Mysterium. The Ghost doesn't have anything to do while the hourglass is going, and it's their job to watch the hourglass and wait for you to say that everybody's done.
Most of the time in Mysterium, the people are done before it runs out. So yeah, the hourglass is better there. It would have been wasted money to make a...
Yeah, and it's also just to keep... It's not to add an element of difficulty to the game, really. It's just to keep it moving.
Right.
So now, for I want to pull out a specific game. You know what? Because it did all of this. All of this was in one game. You didn't play this game, and consider yourself lucky.
I feel very fortunate that the universe doesn't have to end for me.
Yeah, but you bought this game at Jenga.
I bought this game because I thought it sounded fun.
Oh, you want to say the name?
I don't remember.
Damage Report.
Damage Report. It had the hourglass when it really should have had an app or...
There should have been an app.
The egg timer thing.
There should have been an app or a CD or something like that. Okay, so here's the thing. Damage Report works like this. It's a game where you're all on a ship and everything is going wrong, and sirens are blaring, and the ship is going down, and you're running around trying to save the spaceship before it explodes. And as you're going, more things happen and more things go wrong, and it's real time, and you're running around trying to save the ship, and then somebody goes, oh wait, look, the sand timer's out. Did anybody notice? No. How long's it been out? And you're like, no, who knows? All right, well, stop. Hold on. What do we got to do? All right, sand timer ran out. So first we got to flip the timer, and then we have to flip over a new danger, something new that's bad that happens. Okay, ready? Flip. Okay, the new danger is, oh no, your ship is headed towards a wormhole. You have to do the following 5 things to save it. Number 1. And you're like, hurry up, the sand timer's going. Wait. Number 1, you have to do this. And number 2, oh my God, the sand timer's halfway out. Hurry up. Okay, I'm reading as fast as I can. And that's how that game plays. And after playing that game once, I wanted to take it in the backyard. I wanted to strap M80s to it, blow it up, gather it back together, set it on fire, stir it, douse it in lighter fluid, set it on fire again, and then pee on it.
And even like, we could have used a timer on our phone for it, but we still would have been reading like a card full of text and
during the time,
and losing 30 seconds to reading the entire text, where it could have just been a photo that said wormhole and like. And every wormhole you had to do the same thing, so you could just easily memorize.
Well, plus it comes with these sand timers. The sand timers don't even specifically tell you how much time there, so you don't know how much time to put on your phone. You'd have to time it and be like, okay, well, this seems to be around 5 minutes, so I should put a 5-minute timer on. You know what? They should have had an app, or they should have had a disc, or they should have had something that made sound, and also all of the things you had to turn over while the clock is going should be symbols that immediately tell you what needs to be done. It should be nothing more complicated than takes 3 seconds to figure out. Like, oh, there's damage to the engines. Gotta go fix the engines. That should be it. There should not be a block of text that you have to read while the time is going.
I like how a couple of your top 10s are just affiliated with one specific game, just destroyed.
Well, there's other
Sherlock Holmes and Damage Report.
Oh, well, all right, there are other games that have done things like this, but none did it so horribly as Damage Report had done.
Well, my number 1 is bluffing.
Oh,
I hate bluffing games. I'm terrible at them. I just don't like them. I don't like to play them.
You know, I had no idea you hated bluffing that much.
Bluffing.
Because I like bluffing games.
I don't care that you like it. I hate them.
I feel like we had this discussion.
We have talked about it, but I didn't realize it was so bad that it was your number 1.
The bane of the brutally honest.
Like but I mean, you will sometimes, when we ask, you'll sometimes play Sheriff of Nottingham. While we're playing it, are you picturing us dead?
No, I'm not picturing you dead, but I'm not really enjoying myself.
Waiting it for it to.
I had no idea you hated bluffing. Is there a reason why you hate bluffing?
I'm just terrible at it. I laugh whether I'm telling the truth, and I laugh whether I'm lying.
But you figured that'd be good to have consistency.
I don't enjoy it.
Maybe you're better at it than you think.
No.
You won last time we played Sheriff.
I've won it a couple times, but I mean...
You just never liked it, even when you went?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I just know.
Well, now that I know that that's your number 1, I'd like to take this moment to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for playing Sheriff of Nottingham with me so much, because I had no idea you were hating on it that much, and I really enjoyed that game.
True love.
There's other bluffing games you flatly refuse to play. Like, you wouldn't play Coup with me, and I like Coup. So which is very sad to me, because I quite like Coup, but she won't play it.
Sounds like you owe her a game of Damage Report.
No, we've sold Damage Report. Okay. but you know what? Actually, that might mean I owe her a game of Tales of the Arabian Nights.
6-player Tales of the Arabian Nights.
Let's not get out of hand here.
See you in fall. My number 1 thing that pisses me off about games is something that Lynn mentioned already, is downtime. The sitting there watching people calculate their points every turn.
You have to be thinking of a specific game here.
Yeah, and the problem is that I really like the game. And
really?
It's Terraforming Mars.
That's one of my favorite games of all time.
It's a great game. I really like that game. But that game is so good. This is actually a compliment. The game is so good.
But you think it's too much downtime between turns?
That part I can overlook.
Okay.
Even though it's one of the things I hate the most in gaming is watching people calculate their scores.
Okay, so like when
you're not doing anything. It doesn't change. It doesn't change what you've done, what you're doing.
You're just sitting there and watching them do stuff on their turn.
And if there's like 5 people playing,
you have to wait a long time for it to come around.
There's 10 minutes of everybody sitting there not doing anything.
Probably more than 10 minutes.
Yeah. So but the rest of that game is so good that I'm willing to overlook it. So this is a fatal flaw in anything less
than an amazing
game. Yes.
I'm surprised that actually your number 1 is something that even though you hate it that much, you're able to overlook it in certain games.
Right.
I'm also surprised that your number 1 was bluffing games. I mean, I know you don't like bluffing games. I had no idea that was your number 1.
I'm full of surprises.
Full of surprises. Look at this.
You don't know me.
Wow. Newsflash.
I think I know you. I thought I knew you.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you have it. There's our top 10 things in games that piss us off. And do any of these things really infuriate you? What infuriates you when you're playing a game? What drives you up a wall? What makes you want to pull your hair out or jump over the table and strangle the person across from you? And it's really not their fault, it's the game. But what is it? What does that to you? What just in a game's, makes you want to watch the galaxy burn? What does that? What evokes that horrible negative feeling in you? Because you know what? Games shouldn't do that. Games should not evoke those kind of negative feelings in you. Games should be fun. They should be communal. They should evoke good feelings. But let us know, what are the worst things in games that really drive you nuts? Now, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns on this video, please put them in the comments down below, as well as telling us what things piss you off in games. And then if you enjoyed this top 10 list and you'd like to see us do more like it, please give it a like, share this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Kaptain. That's Captain spelt with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.